Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Masterclass Theatre. My name is Dave Guest, and I have the joy of guiding people through these various sessions. Have you been anywhere nice for your holidays this year? And if you did you go by coach? Well, from days out to historic centres and attractions to grand tours across Europe, coach tourism provides access to a vast range of experiences loved by customers. How can we ensure that coaches are consistently welcomed and can access all areas and overcome any barriers to entry? This session will highlight initiatives designed to offer practical support to operators. It'll also feature valuable updates on changes to the European Travel Information and Authorisation System and EU Entry-Exit Systems, as well as package travel regulations. As you can see, we've got a panel of expert speakers, and the first of those I'd like to welcome up is Phil Smith. He's coaching manager at CPT. Phil has over 40 years' experience working in the coach and bus industry, holding positions at all levels of operational and commercial and general management. Please make him feel very welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. I'd like to start the presentation this afternoon with some facts and figures that have just become apparent very recently from CPT's major report into the economic impact that coaches have on the UK economy. And I think some of these figures will actually surprise you. Our sector, we believe, carries 450 million individual passenger trips, or we provide 450 individual passenger trips per annum. That is a huge number, and it's people travelling for all sorts of reasons: coach, tourism, going on their holiday, rail replacement, taking children to school on dedicated services, whole manner of things. But it just shows how strategically important that coaches are, both to the economy at a top level, and also to provide vital public transport facilities for people that may otherwise not have them. The money, the next thing. We believe that the tourist destinations in particular probably benefit from around £5.5 billion nearly from coach passenger spend, and that the economy as a whole benefits from over £8 billion per year. These are really big numbers. And the inbound tourists, which are crucial to the UK economy as a whole, but the tourism sector in particular, we believe is well over £600 million just from people travelling around the country by coach. And finally, very important on employment, on what the number of people that work in the sector, 54,000 people are directly employed by UK coach operators right across the UK. And this is also very critical to the rural economy, because there's a definite bias as to where coach operators are based, and the rural communities of this country would be a lot worse off if the employment, the opportunities provided by coach operators didn't exist. So, what are the soft benefits of travelling by coach? It's always good for a safe trip. Coach travel is one of the safest forms of transport you can use. We help with reducing traffic congestion. One coach can probably eliminate up to 25 individual car journeys. Very important when you think about coaches travelling to places, for example, in the east of England, where motorways aren't too generously available. We help the air become cleaner. Coaches generate up to 5 times less CO2 than other modes of transport. And we create inclusivity, whether it's school children going on trips, people who don't have their own transport can have a holiday, and of course older people who may not be able to drive anymore can still go away. So, this is I suppose the critical question: how do we enable coach travel to actually grow? Well, these are some of the things we do at CPT to facilitate operators to have a better experience when running their coaches to particularly tourism destinations, and also for the tourism destinations which are often in places which have sometimes seen better economic times and are trying to regenerate. This is how we help them. We've currently got 35 destinations and attractions that are part of our coach-friendly scheme, and there is growing interest. We've got another 8 applications which are probably going to go live in the next 12 months. And this enables us to heavily influence things like easily accessible coach parking, hopefully free, but not always, better facilities for passengers in terms of toilets being available and basic stuff like that, and benefits for the coach drivers as well, and a whole manner of other things. But this is something that we are very keen to promote because we believe it will enable coach companies to grow their tourism and group businesses. And the other thing that Coach Friendly is really, it's a soft stick for destination management organisations and for local transport authorities to understand that they must think about coaches when they're making their future strategic plans, whether that's in local transport plans or whether it's in economic development strategies to make places like seaside resorts and historic towns a better place to visit. And the report I referred to at the beginning of my presentation is actually key to progressing that objective. So, just very quickly to round off, we do a whole range of things to represent coach operators and the coach sector. We are actively involved in airport and seaport liaison groups such as Heathrow. We're members of the UK Tourism Alliance, which really does give us access all the way up to ministerial level in the UK government. Scottish Tourism Alliance, which does a similar thing. And we are also a warrior. We are fighting the coach sector's corner with the UK government and the European Commission with regard to EES, which Samantha is going to talk about in more detail, so I won't go to that particular subject. And we've also picked up the cudgel with coach banishment at Bourton-on-the-Water, and also Matlock Bath, where the council want to reinstate the coach parking, but some delicate, how can I put this, delicate issues around dealing with ethnic minorities won't allow them to do it quickly. Apologies if I didn't put that delicately enough. So that, in a nutshell, is what I do at CPT: manage stakeholder relationships, promote the cause of coach operators, and generally try and make running coaches an easier job. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. The CPT's Coach Warrior making a very compelling case there for why coaches mean business in the UK. Well, next up is Samantha Bradbury. She's Membership Director at Bonded Coach Holidays, ABTOT, and her knowledge of all things connected to the package travel regulations and insurance bonding made her the perfect fit to become the Membership Director of ABTOT. Please make her feel welcome, Samantha Bradbury.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of the package travel regulations and also bring you up to date on developments with EES and ETIAS, as Phil has just mentioned. Now, the package travel regulations, often referred to as PTRs or the travel regulations. Anyone running a coach business who already sells holidays will be very well versed with these regulations, but any operators that are thinking of going into this sector, there are certain things that you do need to know. The selling of coach package holidays is regulated by this legislation. The legislation was introduced in 1992. It was revised in 2018, and it's currently under review again. The current iteration of the regulations is the Package Travel and Linked Travel Arrangements Regulations 2018. These regulations set out that if you are a coach operator providing package holidays, you have to provide insolvency protection for your customers, and that insolvency protection protects any monies that are paid to you in advance of those holidays, and will also cover the costs of repatriating your customers in the event of your insolvency if they are abroad. There's a number of other things that the PTRs also cover about information that you have to give to your customers, information that you have to display in your booking records, but in terms of what bonded coach holidays do and ABTOT, our focus is principally on the insolvency protection. Now, package has been mentioned a lot, and this is a key factor of these regulations. They only apply to package sales, but they can apply to single element sales. A package is defined as two of the following four components. It's some form of transport, and that can include a flight, but that is covered by additional regulation, the ATOL regulations. So the some form of transport could be coach, it could be rail, it could be ferry. It's overnight accommodation, some form of other tourist service, or motorized vehicle hire. And you have to have two of those four elements for it to be defined as a package, and the trip itself has to be more than 24 hours. So one important distinction under the regulations is that day trips, lots of coach operators do day trips. That doesn't need to be financially protected. You can continue doing that through your business without having to worry about this regulation. But once you start expanding your offering to include hotel accommodation or overnight stays, this is where these regulations kick in. Again, as mentioned on the slide, if you're just a supplier and you're providing the coach element to other tour organisers, they will take on the burden of the financial protection rather than you. So two very important distinctions there so that you don't take on regulation that you don't necessarily need. Financial protection, as mentioned, it covers customer money refunds and customer repatriation costs and claim costs as needed. So I mentioned that the regulations are under review. The Department for Business and Trade, the government department that regulates ABTOT, put out a call for evidence last year asking for input and comments from the industry about amending the obligations under the package travel regulations. It was quite a detailed document. There was sort of around 40 or 50 questions. Some of those questions proposed maybe introducing a minimum cost for financial protection to apply, maybe removing the financial protection burden if you didn't involve transport in the package. So that would cover things that are commonly called Hotel Plus packages, where a hotel might add a round of golf, or it might add a wine tasting or some kind of culinary experience. Currently, because that would fall under the other tourist service, that would be defined as a package, and those hotels should also be providing financial protection. So there's discussion under this current consultation about whether that can be removed to remove the burden for some businesses and open up business and open up packages to more people. I haven't spent much time on linked travel arrangements, and I don't intend to do so today because that could be a whole 45-minute session all by itself. But under the current regulations, there is a slightly different form of reduced package called a linked travel arrangements, which is causing all sorts of headaches to the industry. And one of the suggestions is, should we get rid of that? And then I mentioned also about the amount of information that people have to give out to their customers ahead of booking. There's suggestion in the call for evidence about simplifying or reducing the amount of evidence as well. ABTOT, as an approved body, we went out to our members, our Bonded Coach Holidays members, and asked for their input. We provided a formal response, as did many stakeholders. The Department for Business got over 150 responses from the industry that they've been compiling and collating. The report was just about to go to the Minister for approval when there was a snap general election called last year. You may remember, or early in the year, you'll remember that. So the formal response hasn't hasn't yet been put before the Minister, but we're almost at the stage where it will be, and there'll be a further consultation following that with some reduced suggestions and proposals in that. ABTOT with BCH will continue to liaise with its members and get that feedback and feed that back to the Department for Business and Trade going forward. So that in a nutshell is the PTRs. We've mentioned also about EES. Now, I was hoping to be able to talk to you today about the fact that it was supposed to have gone live on Monday. It didn't. The day when it is supposed to go live is still actually not determined. Hot off the press from this morning, there was an online governmental, lots of stakeholder departments conference at 11 o'clock today that I wasn't able to join, but Phil did join. And there'll be some opportunity to expand on that in the Q&A. But there is still no firm date of when EES, the European Entry-Exit System, is going to be introduced. This slide sets out why it's being introduced. It is primarily about increased border control measures. There isn't a charge for it, but it is coming. We don't know when it's coming, but it is. It's going to replace passport stamping, and biometric data is going to be collected. So we're talking fingerprint, eye scan, photo. Very similar to what you're used to in airports at the moment, where you put your hand, you look into your sort of retinal, and your passport is scanned. That is coming for non-flight border transport into Europe. We don't know when, but it is coming, and there is going to be preparation that is going to be needed to be done, particularly by the coach sector, because obviously you have a concentration of passengers. You've got 40, 50 passengers per coach that are going to have to be funneled through whatever system is put in place. And we are anticipating that it is going to be booths, there is going to be a delay, and it is going to factor into your itineraries. You do need to take this on board now and start planning for it. It is going to impact your coach holiday business. We anticipate delays, we anticipate teething problems, but we will be here along with CPT to help our members and provide guidance when we know more. But it is a little bit of a watch this space at the moment. From the call this morning, there is a suggestion that it's going to be a non-phased, phased-in approach, whatever that means. But we can sort of delve a little bit more into that later on. We've, along with CPT, have raised the issue about disabled passengers and the difficulty that they might have getting on and off coaches to be able to have their passports and their biometric data scanned. One of the solutions that, again, is still being discussed but hasn't yet been sort of completely fleshed out is some kind of tablet system where the booth operators will come onto the coach and be able to take the biometric scans through tablets or some form of mobile scanning system. Again, that's the ideal. Watch this space. ETIAS. Now, EES and ETIAS get combined all the time. They are separate systems, they are separate projects. They're connected in that they both apply to European holidays. ETIAS is due to come into force 6 months after EES. So as we don't know when EES is coming in, we still don't know when ETIAS is coming in, but the suggestion is that it's going to be 6 months after that. If it's a phased implementation, that could affect ETIAS, so we could still be rolling out EES, and if it takes more than 6 months, you could find ETIAS coming in before all the European countries and Schengen areas are actually fully up to speed with the border control. Now, this does have a cost. It's going to be valid for 3 years. Now, the suggestion from the websites and the European bodies that are providing guidance is that there is going to be a grace period, a 6-month grace period, because we are anticipating, as with any change to border control, there are going to be people that miss it, don't understand it, get it wrong. And for coach operators, obviously the worst case scenario is you've got 40 to 50 people on a bus, 3 of them at the back have forgotten to do this, they get left at Dover or they get left at King's Cross and Pancras, and they have to make their own way home. We're not imagining that that's going to be an issue. It's an online system. You can turn it round very, very quickly, we're told, and we're hopeful that those kind of issues aren't going to actually raise their head. But our advice at the moment is know that this is coming, get your T's and C's updated. This is a customer responsibility. They need to do it, but as the tour operator, you can help them. We have been told that because it's an online application system, people can help those that are vulnerable, the elderly, those that don't necessarily have access to the internet or online systems or aren't competent in this area. You can assist them to get this ETIAS authorization, but it does need to be in place. So get your staff trained, get your customer guidance in place, and get everyone future-proofed for when this is coming in. But watch this space for when that will be. And that's all I've got to say on ETIAS and EES. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Samantha. We will obviously be asking you a few questions about that shortly. But first, we're going to hear from Mark Smith. He is the Trade and Group Sales Manager at Continuum Attractions. Now, he oversees UK and overseas group and trade bookings for this company's 8-strong portfolio throughout the UK. Its attractions include the Coronation Street Experience, the Emmerdale Village Tour, the Loch Ness Centre and the Spinnaker Tower. Mark Smith, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, good morning. So, yes, I've got the nice part of it. This is so when the coaches have arrived at our destinations, this is where we take over. So a little bit about Continuum, and I'll explain why. We have 8 diverse tourist attractions in the UK, and I'll do a little brief of who we are. We've established in 1984. With 40 years of expertise in creating and engaging memorable attractions that blend history, culture, and modern storytelling. We pride ourselves in exceptional guest service, and one of the things that we have in all of our attractions is we all have group departments. We all have contacts at the attractions. So whenever you're visiting or coming to one of our attractions, you always will have somebody to speak to rather than going through a central office. We continue to invest in new experiences and locations, doubling down as a leader in innovative, family-friendly attractions. So that's as Dave said, that's where we have our attractions. 4 of them are in rural attractions. Greenwood, I'm not going to pronounce the Welsh part of it, up in North Wales. The new baby is the Loch Ness Centre up in the Highlands. Then we work very closely with the 2 ITV attractions, one of them being Emmerdale, and the other one is Coronation Street. And in terms of city centre locations, and this is where I know some of the coach operators have a few problems, our Spinnaker Tower in Portsmouth, we have Oxford Castle in Prison, we have the Yorkshire Chocolate Story, and then in Edinburgh we have the Mary King's Close. So, I think the main thing for us and yourselves, the main topic is communication, and this if we need to get the communication right on both sides, and that will lend to a very good experience, not just for your coach operators, but also for your guests as well. So, what we ask for, strong communication between Continuum and any attraction. And because my background is a lot of hotels, I was director of Best Western, we can link this to hotels as well. And the coach operator underpins a successful experience. What we say is a lack of contact between the provider and the supplier can very, 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 very quickly unravel the guest experience. So, are any of you tour operators out here, or your coach companies? Okay, so there's 2 parts for us. So the booking, this is where we talk to the tour operators. Once a visit has been booked and contract signed, it is then vital to maintain contract. And this is talking from a tour operator side. Any amendment to passenger numbers need passing on ASAP. We must be notified. So if you're working with tour operators, one of the things that we must be notified of any specific accessibility requirements to allow us to cater of the needs of the guest. What we ask from you as coach operators, we ask you to inform us the day before that you're coming of the driver's name, the phone number of the driver, And we also need to know is which coach company you're from. Because I know a lot of you work on behalf of other companies, so we would need to know which coach to arrive. On the day of the visit, and this is very, very important, the coach driver must maintain communication with the attraction. We'll require an update on what parking space demands you have. So some of our attractions have their own parking space. So what we need to know is, do you need wheelchair access? Have you got an extra large coach? Because what we can have is we can then allocate to you the correct size of the parking space. We need to know the final guest numbers, and we need to know a time of arrival. Now, we are slightly different than a lot of the other attractions. Is all of our attractions are timed arrivals. So we actually allocate the coach and the tour operator a time slot. Now, if you're running late, which invariably that happens when you've got the motorway network, we need to know what time you are expected to arrive. And then what we can then do is then at our end, and this is where the communication between the site and yourselves is important, we can then allocate you a different time slot. The driver must call us an hour before arrival to provide a precise time of arrival. And as I said, please make that a number one on the day that you need to let us know what time you're arriving. Following the visit, let us know. Please let us know. Give us some feedback on how the visit went, especially in terms of the communication between us and your driver, and that's very, very important. Because if there was something that you felt we could do better, then please let us know, and vice versa as well. And that's it. I say it's all about communication. If we get the communication right with ourselves and yourselves, it makes life so much more easier for you and for us. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much indeed for that presentation. We will get some questions from the floor in a moment, but I just want, first of all, to raise something that somebody submitted a question about, where they said coach operators can feel sometimes that they're not welcome at venues, and yet we heard earlier that they bring in about £5 billion worth of business to venues. It's a no-brainer. Why would any venue not want to welcome as many coaches as they possibly could?
I can't answer that because like I've said, we want groups into our attractions. Whether it's domestic coaches or overseas coaches, that's what we want them. We welcome them. We have special groups terms and conditions. We have special rates. We have special deals for the coach drivers. So, as I say, speaking from our 8 attractions, and to be honest, a lot of the hotel chains that I've worked with before, we want groups. We welcome groups, and yeah, that's all I can say. I mean, please send us all your groups. That's what we want.
I suppose that the thing you touched on right at the start of your presentation, Mark, was communication.
Absolutely.
So get in touch with the attraction, whether it's one of yours or somebody else's, and say, we want to bring X coach parties on these dates. It will mean this many people, blah, 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 and keep that communication going.
Absolutely, it's vital. I mean, as I say, we have twofold. Whether you're working through a tour operator or a wholesaler, or if you're a coach company doing your own thing, it's vitally important. And even throughout, there's change in numbers. You say, well, we haven't got as many people as coming. Can we renegotiate the rates? Or that's a very different thing. But the main thing for us, and it's certainly when we're working with like the city centre locations, so the likes of Oxford, the likes of York, the likes of Edinburgh, and the difficulties I know that a lot of you had in finding parking spaces, and certainly where Oxford's concerned and where my office is in York, it's imperative that your coach drivers are in contact with us. And as I said in the presentation, because we, and like a lot of the other attractions, are all timed numbers. We need, and if we've got a problem, what the last thing we want to do is for your guests to turn up, and we have to turn them away because we're full. So it's input that communication between the driver and us is very, very important.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it work at the end of the day.
I think you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. In answer to your question as well, what we're seeing in a small number of locations across the UK, and I'm not going to name them this afternoon, is that there appears to be a trend within those localities that they want to choke tourism off. So they want fewer tourists who spend more money. And there's a misconception that coach passengers don't spend enough money, which is complete nonsense. And we've identified at CPT this is an issue with some communities. And that's one of the objectives of the report that we've commissioned, is to actually demonstrate the economic spending power of coach passengers, whether that be in a historic town or city, a seaside resort, wherever coaches take them, so that we can immediately head that theory off, if you will.
There is a discrimination then that says people on coaches are poor, effectively.
That might be a bit strong, but I think there's a view that people travelling to locations that are worthy of visiting by other means may spend more money. I'm not quite sure whether that constitutes discrimination.
Yeah, Samantha, I think you want to say something.
Again, to add to that from sort of the bonded coach holidays ABTOP perspective, I don't think you can underestimate the importance of coach package holiday operators to the UK. ABTOP's got nearly 400 members. 1 in 4 of those members are coach holiday operators. They are spread throughout the country. They offer opportunities to people who don't live an hour from an airport to go out and explore, to go overseas, to see the amazing sort of destinations within the UK or beyond. So the coach holiday sector is huge, and it's very, very important to the UK as a whole and the communities that they serve.
Well, it sounds like it's got a great story to tell, but is it telling it? Is it telling it widely? I mean, some of your figures, 54,000 people working in it, £5 billion was generated for attractions, 450 million journeys. Is that story getting out there? Do people understand?
Well, that's our job, Dave, and that's what we are promoting. And the coach-friendly scheme is gaining momentum, and it's really crucial that it does, because that opens the eyes of policy and decision makers in local authorities and DMOs across the length and breadth of Britain to show just how economically valuable coach passengers and coach travel is to them. But secondly, we're all about sustainable tourism now, and the coach is absolutely the best way of delivering sustainable tourism in a UK and probably a European context.
And that's where local authorities putting it into their transport plans is vitally important, making allowance for it.
Yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning that historically, we as a bus and coach industry, and particularly through CPT, we've generally won the argument about bus travel being sustainable, being good for the environment, being good for social cohesion. I don't think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody in a local authority now that would disagree with those principles. But we've still got a job to do where coach travel's concerned. And I think the reason for that is that often tourism, as a general thing, is the responsibility of the economic development people within local authorities, and often second-tier authorities that don't do public transport as a statutory responsibility. And they've just got, the long-held post-war conception that people travelling by car are going to spend loads of money. The more cars you get in, the better. It's better for the shopkeepers, it's better for the attractions. And when coach-friendly, the report and the narrative that CPT are running now is all about changing those perceptions.
I think something you said earlier, Phil, I think one of the biggest problems we've had in our industry, certainly from my side, has been education. After COVID, we lost some very, very good people. And a lot of hotels, a lot of attractions got rid of very, very good people who understand the leisure industry. And what we're doing now is sort of over the sort of last couple of years, it's re-educating people. It's re-educating people to understand how the coach industry works. I mean, I'm lucky I've been in it for a long, long time. And so I sort of understand from all sides. But that is the biggest problem I feel for tour operators, for coach operators, is getting somebody at the attraction, getting somebody at the hotel who actually understands what this industry is about. And one of the things we've done at Continuum, as I said, we have what we call revenue relationship managers. So we have a person who looks after the coach industry, the group industry in every one of our attractions. And I sort of lead that team, and so I educate all of the people how to work with the industry. And to be honest with you, I think we do, excuse my language, a bloody good job at certain places. Stuart's just been to Coronation Street and ITV, and they're two of our biggest attractions, and it works very, very well. But no, it's all about re-educating some of our staff in getting the powers that be, i.e. the owners, to actually bring some people in who know what they're doing.
We need some more marks out there.
Absolutely,
at the
I
attractions,
agree.
don't we?
Yes,
Definitely.
I fully agree.
Anybody got anything they'd like to add? Any experiences you've had about access and things like that before we move on to other subjects? Then?
Hello, Jim Smith. I work for Spirit Sussex down in Brighton. Phil, you touched on it, and it's been touched on by others, about the parking facilities for a lot of attractions. Some we're welcomed and some we're not. And I was impressed when I went to St Pancras to pick some students up, and it's free parking at St Pancras. You drive in there, the guy sees you in there and parks you up. It's fine, nothing, it's free. Go to Rye and they charge you £17, and there's a row of coach spaces, but nobody uses them because they know they're not going to pay 17 quid. They're trying to encourage people to visit these places, and unfortunately, we're not encouraged enough by them, and that's the problem. And more work needs to be done, and unfortunately, it's just not happening.
Thank you. So basically, when you have to pay, the space is empty, so they're not getting the money anyway. So CPT, I presume you are trying to keep on battering local authorities to say, and others to say there is actually a good reason why you should provide free spaces.
The challenge is that the overwhelming bulk of the capacity for car parking, coach parking, any vehicle parking in places is a cash cow for local authorities. And whilst we try and influence local authorities, particularly through the coach-friendly scheme, to be, sensible in how they price, particularly, we're not particularly interested in how they price cars, more expensive the better, but how they price coach parking. It can sometimes be difficult because, as in with national government, it's the borough treasurers or the finance departments that tend to rule the roost. And what we try to do is in places that want to engage with us, and that's an increasing number of towns, villages, seaside resorts, we'll say, look, all right, we accept there's an issue about what you charge for coach parking and it's not easy to reduce, but how about looking at some of the other things that you do for coach passengers, for coach drivers, to make the overall operational experience of visiting easier. So in other words, it might cost a little bit more to park the coach, but you're actually delivering something in return for it. And that's where our coach-friendly scheme works, because we can use it to leverage more out of local authorities when their hands are tied on what they charge for parking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it might be something just as simple as providing a rest area for the driver, where he can go and
well,
sit
I'll give you an
in a comfy
example of
chair
that.
rather than sit in the coach all the
We
time.
recently renewed a coach-friendly accreditation in Windsor, which is, as you can imagine, a very popular destination with coach trips, both nationally and from abroad. And they didn't have any facility for drivers to get discounted refreshments near the coach park. And I actually made that a condition of renewal that they found somewhere, and they did. And it took them a little bit of time, but they came back with a solution. And this is a sort of leverage that the coach-friendly scheme can have Picking up and dropping off points are another one. You know, for example, some places think it's great just to plonk them in the middle of where the bus stops are. Well, that just aggravates bus drivers and it makes the coach driver's job impossible. So we use the coach-friendly scheme to move them away from, you know, negative aspects like that, so that they think of somewhere sensible for coaches to drop off and pick up. Because often the drop off and pick up points aren't where the coaches park. They are sometimes, but often they're not.
Okay, I'm going to move on to some of the stuff you talked about, Samantha, in a minute. I just want to check, has anybody else got any observations, points specifically about access, getting coaches in and out of venues? We're okay with that. Samantha, in your presentation, you were saying that the entry and exit system rules, regulations, whatever you want to call them, are being put back. Does that indicate that maybe somebody's looked at them and thought, we've got something wrong here, we need to look at it again? Or is it just that we've got a new administration who just wants to say, well, that lot's idea, we want to go through it and comb through it and everything else?
Well, the EES system is being brought in by Europe, so it's got
nothing to do with
us. What we think the problem is that it's just it's logistics. It's just such a large-scale operation. You've got however many countries in Europe and the Schengen area, all with different priorities. The aim of EES is to implement it everywhere, rather than it sort of being piecemeal. Right. But logistically, people are just finding that very, very difficult to get every single country on board with an agreed date. So this is maybe the fourth or fifth time it's been put back. It is coming, but we've been advised that by the end of November we might have more of an update as to what this phased
phased, non-phased?
Phased, non-phased.
What they're now saying is, it's all going to come in on the same day, but different geographical locations across the European Union will do it at different times. So in other words, X date will be when it starts, but it will only start on X day in certain places or a certain place. So effectively, it's a phased introduction. It's just that our friends in the European Union want to present it as coming in at the same time, when in reality it won't do.
They don't want to use that comment. There was a wonderful phrase that I wrote down from Phil on the call: maximum operational flexibility to reduce queues, which is just wonderful, which it basically gives whoever's in charge of these the right to say, oh, this is an absolute skip fire, off you go.
It'd be like we had lorries parking up the M25.
Yeah.
And then ETIAS, this is the thing that's obviously going to particularly affect passengers and customers. And you were talking about terms and conditions and blah, blah, blah. Are you confident that people are going to get the message out there? And also, can coach companies perhaps help people, rather than burying it in the terms and conditions, but making a big banner that says, rules are changing on this date, whenever it happens to be. This is key points of what you need to have in place before you travel.
100%, and that's what we're recommending. Coach operators, coach package holiday operators, a lot of them, the vast majority, are family-run, small to medium businesses. They've been around for decades. They know their customer base. Their customers book 4, 5, 6, 7 holidays with them a year. They pride themselves on personal service. So I don't believe bonded coach holiday members or coach operators in general will bury this. They will want to help themselves. They'll want to help their customers. What we are concerned about, obviously, is tour operators being held responsible under other legislation if their customers do unfortunately end up being left at the port of Dover because they haven't done it. That is the worst case scenario. But the coach operators, they can help their customers, they can assist them in the completion. They absolutely should be making a big customer announcement, a customer awareness campaign about it to help their customers understand that it's needed and it's coming and how to do it.
And would a broader campaign be practical, given these European legislation, as in advertising nationally?
There is the meeting that was on earlier today is about the government-led resource about a national campaign. There will be adverts, there will be marketing. There's a very useful government site which sets out what we know so far, which isn't very much. There is going to be toolkits provided to stakeholders in the industry to share, in the same way that the FCDO has a very good campaign about about travel awareness and make sure you've got your travel insurance and make sure you check local laws and customs. We anticipate a similar campaign, a national campaign by the government to bring awareness about both EES and ETIAS. It's coming.
Okay, it's coming. You can't stop it. Thank you. Any final question? Yes, sir. I'll come to you for a very quick question and a quick answer, and then we'll end the session.
Oh, hi. Clive Morgan, European Heritage Tours. I've taken part in an exercise at the shuttle terminal in Calais where we did the passport, we put our hands on the screen, had the photographs taken, and I timed it from the time that 40 people went in, and then the next trip I did, I timed it again, and the new system, because some of the people with large hands, they had to jiggle their hands around before it was too big for the screen. But it took us 24 minutes longer going through with 40 with the new system than having the passports done. Certainly impact on drivers' hours and breaks and so on. I dread to think about getting as far as Lead LMR services and you're looking for a replacement driver to take the coach to the rest of the way to Newport.
Because everybody's been wiggling their hands about. Presumably, Samantha, they're going to take these things into account. One hopes they are, anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, the first time it's done, where the information is collected, it is going to take some time. I mean, we're anticipating maybe 60 to 90 seconds
it's 76
per person.
seconds per transaction. But on subsequent visits, while you've still got the same passport, it will be a lot less. But Port of Dover, which is where this is the main, the main danger area for coach operators. They've done some trials and they believe that the facilities they're installing for the coach dedicated ES point, which is currently on a redundant site in the port, will be able to contain the extra time that it takes. But I mean, Samantha's absolutely right. It will be difficult when it starts, and I wouldn't be, don't take my word for it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's lots of maximum operational flexibility being deployed in order to ensure that the port remains flowing.
Or as Samantha put it, just get moving, go on, get going. Go on through. Anyway.
But coach operators should build in some additional delays into their itineraries. We obviously don't want people being picked up at like 2 a.m. for an 11 a.m. ferry. That's ridiculous. But you might want to just make sure you fine-tune your lead-in times.
And like the gentleman said, you don't want to end up with coach drivers having to swap over midway through a journey and delay
Dave, it's worth mentioning, we have lobbied Port of Dover and they are looking at it, but I'm not convinced they're going to find a solution to try and effect driver changeovers in the EES dedicated facility. But there are there's two things. There's problems around that being a sterile area for the border, but also, because I said, couldn't it be done at the Eastern Docks? But apparently, the last remaining ferry operator to take foot passengers, P&O, are looking at eliminating foot passengers. So it could be that by the time EES comes in, everything is vehicle-based going through the port onto passenger ferries. So we are concerned about the situation with feeder drivers and drivers' hours spread overs for the guys that are taking the vehicles right across Europe on these long hikes, particularly skiing shuttles and that type of operation that require long dives into Switzerland and Austria and places like that, Italy.
Okay, well, as ever, time has defeated us, but thank you very much indeed for some really useful insights there. Fantastic panel there, I think you'll agree, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.